welcome back to a new video. The time is here, it is now fall, it's starting to get cold outside. I have my little pumpkin decorations. I have my pumpkin pillow. All the pumpkin drinks are out at Starbucks and Dunkin'. It is officially fall. And that means it's time for fall books. Today I will be talking about some fall book recommendations and a bunch of different genres, or at least the genres that I like to read. And let's just get into it. I don't know if I should keep this pumpkin next to me because now it's like a little uncomfortable. I'm just gonna put it on my bed. I only have a few of these books in physical form because I actually do use my Kindle a lot, so a lot of these books I actually read on my Kindle as well. So the first genre that I'm going to talk about is romance. It is the genre I think I read the most out of all of the genres I do read. I have 3 books that I think give off fall energy, if you know what I mean. The first book, and my favorite book ever, is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I don't even think this book takes place in the fall time, but it does give off autumn energy, and I think it's because of the small town setting of this book. If you haven't heard of this book before, I feel like it's very popular. It's about Alexis, who is a doctor, and Daniel, who lives in a small town and runs a bed and breakfast. Yeah, he runs a bed and breakfast, and they encounter each other in a very cute meet cute at the beginning of the book that I loved so much. And we get to see how their contrasting personalities and lives come together to form this beautiful story. So like I said, I highly recommend this for fall. It doesn't take place in fall, but I feel like it is a very cozy and cute and reminds me of Gilmore Girls. I think that's why when I think of fall, I think of this book, because this book kind of reminds me of Gilmore Girls for the small town setting, and Gilmore Girls reminds me of fall. Just because. If you know, you know. The second romance book that I have to talk about is Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. This is actually a book I think about often. I think I only rated it 4 stars, but it is a book I think about often because of the New York City setting, and for some reason that also gives me fall energy. So Matt and Grace, they meet at college at NYU, and I think that's also why it gives me fall energy, because the 2 characters met when they first started college, which is, you know, the fall season, all that. But the premise of this story is the second chance romance, so we see how the characters meet 15 years ago when they were in college, and then fast forward to the present time, and they're not together anymore, obviously, and Matt sees Grace as she's getting onto the subway, and he's so determined to track her down and talk to her again. We see how that all unfolds, and it was so beautiful. I mean, something happened at the end that I didn't really like. I don't know if it's considered a trope, but it's something, and I didn't really like it because I felt like it was kind of predictable. Like, I predicted it and I didn't think it was actually going to happen, but I was right. But then it ended up being cute, so I guess it's okay. Let me just say, this book makes me think of Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley. And now every time I hear that song, emotional. And the last romance book that I wanted to talk about was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I believe that's how you say her last name. And I know Ashley Poston came out with a recent book called The 7-Year Slip, which I have right here, that I'm looking to read this fall. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. But basically there's a ghost. It's like a paranormal romance, but not like in a creepy way. I'm just gonna leave that on you to look up the book if you would like more details about it, because I can't remember what is considered a spoiler and what isn't considered a spoiler, and I don't want to spoil you before you read the book. The next genre of books is pretty specific, because it is young adult mystery thrillers, which I always love. I feel like they always do them right, or at least the ones I've read. Primarily Jennifer Lynn Barnes and Holly Jackson. I'm a big fan of both those authors, and I just realized all the books I'm listing off in this genre are by them. So the first one is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I feel like this is not really like thriller. It's just more mystery. It's like cozy and fun, and I just loved all the riddles and stuff. I'm sure you've heard of this book. It's about Avery, and she's kind of thrown into this whole thing where this old man dies and leaves her a bunch of money, a ton of money, and the whole family's like, what the heck? And we don't know what the relation is between this old guy, Mr. Hawthorne, and Avery. That was like the worst plot summary of the book, probably. I just have a big fear of giving away spoilers to the book. You know, like I could talk forever about these books, especially ones I like. So where do I draw the line about spoilers, not spoilers? Because I feel like even when you tell tropes, that's a little bit of a spoiler. Like I realize like when people say like enemies to lovers, like then you know the enemy is gonna end up being their lover. Ew. Why did I say that? You know these two characters that hate each other are gonna end up loving each other. And I feel like that's kind of a spoiler. If they're enemies, like knowing that they hate each other, I just want to think, oh my gosh, they hate each other. So when they do fall in love, it just hits a lot harder. Anyways, that was my like mini rant on telling tropes. So the Inheritance Games. I loved this book and the Hawthorne Legacy, which is the second book. The Final Gambit I listened to an audiobook, and I kind of spaced out on that one, and it was just okay. The other book by Jennifer Lynn Barnes that I highly recommend is The Naturals. I'm sure you've heard of this book as well. Everyone is talking about it recently. It is very, very good. I gave a review recently, I think it was last month, for my August wrap-up, and I really, really loved that book. And I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the books in that series. But once again, it is another like mystery, teen mystery going on. I love how they kind of solve serial killer cold cases, or just cold cases in general. And they're all teens. So quirky. And then the last book in this genre I recommend is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. So I wanted to talk about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but I know everyone's heard that book by her. It's a very, very good series. The last book shook, honestly. I didn't really like it that much because it was just like, what is going on? It was so crazy. But I highly recommend that series, of course. But I wanted to talk more about 5 Survive by the same author, Holly Jackson. I read this last year as an ARC, and oh my god, it's one of the best thriller books I've ever read, even though it's young adult. Like, the way I was terrified, the way I was like on my toes, the way I couldn't put down this book. The premise is it's 5 teenagers in an RV. They take a detour, they get stuck in the RV for a long time, and they realize they're not alone. I'm just gonna say that, but y'all, it was so good. I feel like it was just so good. I was shocked. I was shocked because it was a young adult book, and the stuff that happened in there was crazy. I just like couldn't believe that. I can't believe more people aren't reading that book. It's literally so good. So the next genre is adult mystery thriller books. Just in general, I feel like mystery thriller books just give off fall vibes because of Halloween, horror, being scared, I should say. Mystery books just make me want to like get all cozied up and hide away in my room with a warm drink and a nice scented candle and just get fully immersed into the book, figure out the mystery, and be scared. It just makes sense. Like, spooky season, spooky books go together. The first one is Final Girls by Riley Sager. I read this last year. This was my first Riley Sager book, and I completely loved it. This is a different cover too. I know the other cover is like just the title with like a slash, but this one has a creepy girl on it, which, you know what, I kind of don't understand now that I read the book. I don't really understand the cover. Maybe that's why they changed it. I don't even know if there's a little girl in the story. So I love like slasher horror movies like Scream, and If you don't know the concept of a final girl, the final girl is like, you know, all those slasher movie films, it's like the last girl standing. She's the final girl. So the concept of this book is that there are 3 final girls that survived their own real life massacres. And, you know, society dubbed them as the final girls. It's like years after their massacres, and one of the final girls dies. And I think they think it's a murder, right? So the main girl, Quincy, and the other final girl, Sam, kind of band together to figure out what happened to her. And it gets crazy. The next book I want to talk about was Daisy Darker by Alice Feny. I read Rock, Paper, Scissors by her at the beginning of this year. Wow. And I completely loved it, so I wanted to read another book by her. And I read Daisy Darker. I recommend this one specifically because it takes place on Halloween. So if you're looking for a book that takes place on Halloween, that is the one to go. It starts off on the night of Halloween and goes into the next morning. It's the Darker family. They are gathering for their grandma or Nana, whatever they call her, birthday, which is on Halloween. And they all get stuck there. And things start happening in the house. I do know this book is inspired by an Agatha Christie book, which I really, really want to read because I know she's kind of like the queen of mystery. So I'm kind of wish I waited to read Daisy Darker, but it's okay because now I'm very interested in reading Agatha Christie, and this is what inspired Alice Feny to write Daisy Darker, inspired the story, I should say. And the last book I want to recommend in this genre, it's more of like a cozy mystery book, but I still highly recommend it, and that's Finley, Donovan is Killing It. I read this last summer, I got it from the library, and I really want to expand into cozy mysteries last summer after I started reading, and one of the first books I had read when I got back into reading was Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manala. I'm so sorry for my pronunciation. I do not speak Tagalog, so I just can't say any of the words correctly, or I say it with my American accent. But I found out this was considered a cozy mystery, and so I wanted to dive into other cozy mystery stories because I really liked how it made me feel. Like, you wonder what's happening, but it's not like high stakes or anything, and it's just fun, and it's like funny too. I feel like cozy mysteries are often really funny. So the concept of Finley Donovan is that she is out at a restaurant or like a cafe or something, and she's on the phone with her boss talking about work, and for some reason the certain words that she's saying, there is a lady sitting next to her at this restaurant who thinks she is like an assassin, like you hire her to kill someone. So, you know, Finley gets up, sits back down, and she sees that there's like a note on her. I don't know if she gets up and sits back down, I'm just making things up. But basically the person next to her leaves her a note offering a lot of money to kill someone for her. And Finley is like so confused because she's like, this is not what I do. This is not what I do. But she's tempted because she needs the money. And I forget her like specific situation that's going on, but she like needs the money. And then we see what happens because she is tempted by the money. That's all I'm gonna say. But things still get crazy. But it's kind of cozy and funny, which I loved about it. I know there's like 2 other books in this series. I think there's a 3rd one coming out maybe. But definitely recommend that first book at least if you want to try something different, like a different type of mystery, and cozy mystery sounds fun to you. And the last genre is, I don't know what to call the genre. It's just the last 2 books that didn't really fit into the other categories. It's more like fantasy. Why did I say fantasy like that? I don't know. Fantasy and dystopian stories. So the first one is Caraval. It's definitely a fantasy book, a young adult fantasy that I feel like everyone's been talking about because of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. But I really did love Caraval. I loved being in that little fantasy world with Scarlet and seeing how she was gonna get to the end of Caraval. And then the last book I wanted to talk about for this video is a series that I love very much, and that is Shatter Me. So this book just gives me fall, I don't want to say energy again, but it gives me fall energy just because of the setting. It's like dark and twisty and crazy and action-packed and mysterious and a lot of things. It's a dystopian story. It's a dystopian society. So first of all, everything is kind of crumbling down, and you have a whole series to figure out what happens. So this, I'm sure you've heard of this book as well. It's about Juliet, and she figures out she has a power that if she touches someone, they die. And I know you're thinking, like, what? How could she do anything? But let me tell you, we find out in the book, we find out in the series, things get crazy. And it's so good. So those are all the fall book recommendations that I have for you guys today. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you have any other fall book recommendations for me. I'm trying to build my TBR for October, and I'm having a hard time figuring out what to include. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about books. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.